So, I've understood that the month of February is coming to an end, but I noticed that just because I want to see the new Elemental movie, right, Mom?
Yeah.
I've been wanting to see Elemental as I'm hoping to see this movie this year,
Oh, okay. When's it out?
June 16th.
Cool.
Book me tickets. We'll go and see it so we can take a day off college.
Who's starring in it?
Well, you don't know. We'll find out if
But
case.
you can't go on a college day. Jane Warrington will get annoyed with you.
Why?
She says college days are for college work.
Why?
College days are not for swanning off to the cinema to see Ant-Man.
But last year, I didn't see Lightyear because it was panned by critics.
Yeah, it wasn't good.
But then, instead of seeing Lightyear, I ended up seeing Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse.
It was a lot better.
It was better than Lightyear, in my opinion.
How much do you give it out of 10?
I've already gave the number.
How much?
But now I'm going to say that.
Oh.
Now, where was I? I've understood that my mom told me not to watch Elemental, but we need to review Cars right now. This computer animated sports comedy film was created by Pixar Animation Studios and was released by Walt Disney Pictures, which was directed by John Lasseter, who originally directed Toy Story and its sequel Toy Story 2. From a screenplay by Dan Fogelman, along with Joe Raft, Kiel Murray, and Phil Lord, along with Jorgen Clubian. Even though the story was written by Lasseter, Labbed and Clubian, it was the last film to be independently produced by Pixar after its purchase in January 2006. Even though the month of January 2006 pretty much saw the splitting of both Viacom and CBS into independent companies by National Amusements. Although it's related to this one, if it was relevant, it features the ensemble voice cast of Owen Wilson, Paul Newman in his final voice acting theatrical film role, Bonnie Hunt, Larry the Cable Guy, Tony Shalhoub, Cheech Marin, Michael Wallace, John Ratzenberger, Richard Petty, while race car drivers Dale Earnhardt Jr., Mario Andretti, Michael Schumacher, as well as car enthusiast Jay Leno, who is pronounced as Jay Limo, also voiced themselves, which is set in an out-to-date world not populated by anthropomorphic talking animals, but instead anthropomorphic talking cars are the dominant species of this world, which follows hotshot rookie race car Lightning McQueen, who gets stranded in Radiator Springs after finding himself becoming run down in a junkyard where he met a tow truck named Mater, where he learns a thing or two about friendship, family, and all the things in life that are truly worth waiting for McQueen to handle. It started development in 1998 under the new script The Yellow Car, which is about an electric car living in a gas-guzzling world, with Jorgen Clubian directing it. And it was announced that producers will take control of this movie by early 1999, practically around June 4th. Even though it got scrapped in favour of Toy Story 2, the idea was later saved into WALL-E. Even though it was during a cross-country road trip, Randy Newman composed the film's score, along with the help of Sheryl Crow, Rascal Flatts, John Mayer, and Brad Paisley contributing the film's soundtrack. When it first premiered on May 26, 2006, in Concord, North Carolina at Lowe's Motor Speedway, it was theatrically received positive acclaim and became a commercial success, grossing $462 million worldwide against a budget of $120 million. And it was by far considered to be one of Disney's biggest attempts that became so successful of what I can imagine. That the year 2006 was a really big highlight for Pixar. That for the first time, Pixar made a film for Disney that wasn't about animals, but instead, it was something different. It wasn't about animals or humans interacting to each other. It was mostly about cars. Although the fauna in this movie is full of cars posing as animals, I understood there are some pros. Even though they had a farm of computers that ran 4 times the ones used for both Toy Story and The Incredibles, as well as the Doc Hudson car character being based on NASCAR pioneer Herb Thomas, who drove the Hudson Hornets to the Grand National Championship between 1951 and 53. Although it was beaten out by Lee Patton in 1954, he then crashed in 1955 and 1956, which ended Thomas's career forever. Although it was the last Pixar film to be released on VHS, it was the first to be released on Blu-ray. As for some reason, there are some interesting ideas of what the pros are like. Although it's dedicated to Joe Raft, who died in a car crash in 2005, which caused Cars to be delayed from November 4th, 2005 to the spring of 2006, I probably felt aware that this movie had tons of pros that were heartfeltly heartwarming. Just like Spider-Verse paid tribute to Stan Lee and Steve Ditko, there are some bad qualities. Like, I understood what the bad qualities in this movie is that this was Paul Newman's last feature film with Pixar, even though his last live-action role was Road to Perdition in 2002, and his last work in the film was his short film later, The Ghostlight. Even though it's kind of unique, but also what the regulations don't make sense is that the main villain, being Chick Hicks, played by Michael Keaton, was quite extremely loathsome. That this concept of Chick Hicks himself is that it's all about me, in case he wants to pretty much bump everyone to death like it's a banger racing contest. I felt aware that this movie had a Pyrrhic victory like no other than before. I noticed its Pyrrhic victory is quite double standard. For some reason why it's a near villain victory that you can imagine, when the Piston Cup comes down to a three-way contest between Lightning McQueen, Big Chick Hicks, and Strip Weathers, who is called the King, who wants to retire after his race, Hicks then ends up slamming Weathers to death in what causes Lightning to be in the lead, only to drop out to help Weathers at least finish his last race. But when Hicks actually wins, but Weathers gets put to second place, allowing Lightning in third, what he tries to accept the trophy, only to find out that the crowd boos at him, only to realise that the true winner means that he was a cheater to the public. What costs him his deal with Dinoco to expire is that Weathers is forced to retire in favour of McQueen receiving his sportsmanship despite losing the race or his own actions, or what the consequences were like this. Well, despite this, I know it felt similar to how the ending of Far From Home and the beginning of No Way Home was like to Spider-Man. In what they felt aware that this movie felt like it had bad publicity everywhere throughout the ending of that movie. Well, although Lightning succeeded in defeating Hicks with the moment he helped Weathers get into retirement, he learned his own body was in his own ritual circle. Despite Lightning being strong enough to pull Weathers into the finishing line, he learns how to perform his own ritual to be independent. Basically, he pulled himself into the circle in the nick of time because he didn't want to lose his life, just like the Iron Giant died in that movie. Well, despite the climactic victory of that ending of what I saw, I just felt aware that this movie felt like this movie had McQueen's car. The number of that name, 95, was originally going to be 57. As I noticed that this movie could have felt like it would have been better. As I noticed that 57 was based on John Lasseter's birth year, and 95 was this a Toy Story, it felt a bit confusing. Although, it's probably creative to have what I can imagine in this movie, as I noticed that this was one of the only Disney films, Disney animated films, not to be released in the months of June or November until Raya the Last Dragon got released in March. Even though it got released in May, it felt a bit divisive in my opinion. As I felt aware, it's kind of ridiculous to understand. Just because Luxor Jr. took his big leap into thin air from what I saw in 1986, I'd say it's a must-have for me to believe in this movie. The central theme is, you should believe in doing the ritual on your own independently. You just don't need your friends to help you do it. Because the ritual of fame and fortune is learning how to help someone who is dying from an accident of what he or she would be killed by it. But to top it all off, even though the UK version features Jeremy Clarkson being involved in it, it also featured Tom Killerem, who is Danish in this version. Even though the 3D version replaced the Disney logo and its music cue with a more current logo that was more creative. And I felt aware that Fernando Alonso only appears in the Spanish version of Cars, as well as Mika Hakkinen showing up with Niki Lauda in the German version of Cars, along with a French version where Meta says, like tomato without the tar, didn't translate that much. It felt a bit interesting, although the non-English powered DVD versions in the Singapore version had preserved with a NTSC pitch despite having the PAL frame rate, within 23 to 25 frames per second. Even though it had a widescreen aspect ratio of 2.39 to 1, most CGI films had that as well, like Lego Movie, Incredibles, and A Bug's Life. But to top this movie off, despite the pirate victory, I'd say I would try and give this movie an interesting number. I'd say I'd give this Cars movie just a solidly decent 7.8 out of 10. Although the film is fun, I noticed that it's kinda amazing for me to handle this. If I want to drink water right now, I'd say we humans and cars can be equal to each other. Yeah, that's the thing about what an alternate universe should look like. I could imagine that. But with that out of the way, this was me signing off. So, bye-bye!